Welcome, Hammad. So great to have you on the show. I'd love to hear a lot about Susa Ventures and what you're interested in investing in.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me start off with telling you a little bit about Susa and a little bit about me. Um, Susa, we've been around for many years now, 9 years at this point. Historically, Susa has been a seed stage fund, but now we're a seed stage and an early stage fund. So we focus on seed investments and Series B and Series C investments. We have four focus areas the way we view the world. We think about it in terms of SaaS, FinTech, InsurTech, supply chain logistics, and healthcare. We recently closed on a 375 million in our latest family of funds. 125 of that is for the seed fund, and 250 million is in the opportunity fund, which we use for existing and net new Series B and Series C investments. Um, some of our big investments that you must have heard about include Robinhood, Flexport. We were first money in both businesses. Expanse on the SaaS side, Viz.ai on the healthcare side. Stored is another logistics business that we've invested in, and we recently participated in their last round. Really exciting track record, and our goal is always to partner with amazing businesses and to provide our help and support and anything that we can do to help them succeed. My background is in software and fintech investing. I joined Susa earlier this year. Prior to Susa, I was at Vista Equity, focusing on growth and buyout software investing. And prior to that, I spent some time at Morgan Stanley as a tech investment banker. So it's been an amazing transition coming to Susa here.
And wow, some great names there, and obviously a good overview of the market. Tell me, how has it been since the crisis? I know initially when I started doing podcasts when the lockdown happened in Palo Alto last year, that basically the everyone was just lots of question marks about where things were going. But now the market's really heated up. How's it in the BNC series investing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few things that have happened over the last year and a half, and that's really supercharged sort of the VC market across all stages. But I think in the beginning, and I'm sure you know this already, but in the beginning, the first few months, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions, and
Yeah.
then suddenly, at the turn of the summer, the market came roaring back. I think there's a couple of things that have happened broadly when you think about early stage companies and when you think about their target customers. I think broadly across the entire U.S. and even global economy, I think customers have started to become a lot more sort of results and goals oriented. They've started to realize the importance in having high ROI solutions that can propel them in doing their business efficiently, effectively, and press on cost savings and all of those things. And I think that gives young growing companies a great opportunity to align with their potential customers and with their existing customers, and really offer solutions that are that have hard ROIs, that provide a very real benefit to customers. And I think, as I think about the world, I think this is a trend that that's definitely propelled us many years into the future in terms of digital transformation. I mean, you see that in healthcare, with telehealth just becoming the main the a huge part of the conversation today, whereas 2 years ago, before the pandemic, it wasn't as front and center as we would have thought. And that's just one example. Folks across the world, across industries, are looking for technology solutions that can solve bottlenecks, that can solve problems that they have. Another great example that I want to highlight here is what you see with the global supply chain crunch that we're facing right now.
Oh, yes.
Folks like
Please.
yeah, folks like Ryan Peterson, founder of of Flexport. They're doing an amazing job trying to identify the problems that we have in the non-digitized world, and figuring out solutions to those problems, and how you can sort of marry the interests of these young growing companies with solving broader customer problems, broader global problems. So that's a very exciting trend that we're seeing, even on the B and C side. And I think that's a very, very good sign for startups.
It's like we've all been pushed towards more innovation very quickly, correct?
Exactly, 100% right. And more innovation is always a great thing. So as I see the world today, I think that's going to be a big part of our conversations going forward.
Sure. Yes, and more innovation is exciting, and it's so great to be on that cutting edge of the passion and creativity. But the other thing that's emerged, which is a bit out of the conversation, but the human use of technology, like a lot of the social media sites, are really being exposed for their lack of humanity. So I think that's another balance that needs to be addressed, obviously, and the crisis has done that, and it seems like we're going to have to live with it. It's not going to go away, and we're having to adjust to a whole new world. So, really interesting perspectives. And so, tell me, Hamid, um, what do you see coming out of the global supply crisis, shipping crisis that has just been going on for a very long time now? Um, what do you see are the opportunities there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we at SUSE, we have a history, and we always get really excited about, looking at solutions that are focused on what we like to call dusty industries. That's the supply chain
Mm,
of the world, the logistics of the world, and insurance being another play there. And really, what defines these dusty industries are that they're way behind in their digital transformation relative to everyone else.
mm,
So as we think about, what are the kind of solutions that will come out here, I think folks and entrepreneurs and founders are doing a great job at identifying specific problems that exist um, within our global networks, and specifically within supply chain. What Flexport, for example, is doing is incredible. Thinking about how to invoice better, for example, is another
mm.
interesting idea. How to think about cross-border logistics, be it trucking or maritime. There are significant and substantial gaps within our networks, and when I say networks, I really mean all different facets of our life, that haven't been digitized as much as they should have. So I think there's going to be an increased focus on some of those areas, as we go forward. And I think one thing that I'm realizing a lot is that as humans, and as a global community, as individual nations and societies, we the globalization of the world, and the way things have trended over the last 50 years, we've taken on a lot of these global systemic risks, right? Shipping
Mm.
lanes, for example, is a huge systemic risk for us. You saw when a ship got stuck in the Suez Canal, and that just
Yes.
destroyed everything, right, across the board for multiple weeks. So
Yeah.
being able to mitigate some of those systemic risks, as you would put it,
Mm.
by the effective and efficient use of technology, both in terms of predicting it, and also implementing solutions that would be that would play a major role in potentially averting some of those problems in the future. I think is a pretty exciting way of how to think about the future from here. And we're going to see same types of innovations and exciting things coming out in some of the other industries which are ahead in digital transformation. FinTech, for example, is one thing that you
Mm.
focus on quite a bit. And there's a lot of excitement around aligning end customer as a company, and then also end user interests with each other. And there's a lot of companies that are doing some very exciting stuff in that regard as well. So I think the pandemic has definitely shifted people's opinions, customers' opinions, companies' opinions into a wider adoption of some of those things as well.
Very exciting that it has propelled, definitely the crisis has propelled fintech innovation and acceptance. Um, so fast. It was fantastic. So it's obviously, two sides to the sword, as they always say, a negative and a positive side. So the other question I was going to ask you, you mentioned that your firm's invested in Robinhood. What do you think? What's your perspective personally about the drama that happened with GameStop a while back?
Look, I think
It was
ultimately,
just another drama in the whole drama period, but it was pretty amazing, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was certainly remarkable to see the strength of retail investing really coming out. And
Mm.
if you set aside everything about what happened, and whether GameStop is overvalued or undervalued, setting all of that aside, I think at the very core of it, I think one thing that we really saw coming out of it is just how different investing is in today's world for a retail investor. And I think a lot of that has been done because Robinhood has democratized the way investing happens in the US. I mean, we all remember, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it's just not too long ago, right? This is not even a lifetime ago. 5 or 7 years ago, we had to go to Fidelity and open a brokerage account. And it took a long time
Yeah,
to get it done.
yeah,
And if you wanted to trade options, or if you wanted to trade something illiquid, you had to pay commissions, really high commissions on top of it, which was just not very conducive for a retail investor. And the market was just really the market structures that were in place were just really there to help and assist institutional investors or accredited investors. But the an average retail investor just didn't have an avenue to participate in the market the way they could. So I think one thing, when you think about the GameStop saga and everything that's happened since then, I think this is a power of where we're headed, where we're democratizing these things like stock markets, or generally investing. um, we're putting it in the hands of people and giving them the choice, in many ways, giving them the choice to sort of act on what they think, which I think is a brilliant idea. So I think
mm,
ultimately it shows the strength of the Robinhood platform and what the founders of Robinhood and the company itself has been able to achieve, in terms of the goal that they've set forth. And you can argue a lot about with the GameStop saga, and there's a lot of things within the market structures that cause that. But I think at the very core of it, this is sort of a sign that things are getting a lot more democratic, and people are getting their hands on structures that were initially out of bounds for them.
and it's also interesting about with startups. Definitely, timing is a big factor, which is something no one can control really, and I would say that millennial market, once the crisis started, basically took that opportunity to uh, be trading online and learning about that, which is great because I know there's been a lot of setbacks for the millennial market. So they took their own empowerment, and did something about it. So yeah, definitely, again, another positive sign to democratize that. Um, that function that we never had the opportunity years ago. Thanks so much, Hamid. Where do you think things are going just generally as far as innovation? You have such an enviable seat at the table as an investor. What's your perspective?
That's a great question, and we can honestly talk about hours in terms of where innovation is going. But let's. I think maybe it would be helpful if we just talk about some of the things that I'm seeing in fintech. I think that's
Okay,
a way to
that'd be great.
do that. So I think there's a few things that I'm really excited about, in terms of where innovation is going. The first thing I want to highlight is just the level of the level of sort of growth and innovation that's coming out of emerging markets, which is very exciting in today's world. And I'm originally from Pakistan, so I've been following the Pakistani landscape very closely, and you see a lot of very interesting solutions coming out in recent years. Or in the last, call it, 1 12 to 24 months, and it's been very exciting to see that up front. Some of the things that I want to highlight there is, there are digital ledger and sort of short-term working capital loan solutions coming out for SMB retailers, which form a substantial part of the economy there. There's solutions that are more focused on agriculture and offering farmers ways to be able to sell their product better, and to be able to get the loans that they desperately need, from a working capital perspective. There's solutions that are tackling some of those inherent underbanked huge underbanked population in the within the Pakistani economy. Some of them being consumer facing solutions that are creating neobanks, which are offering bank accounts and debit cards to people who previously didn't have them. Salary advance is another thing that's coming out of that. So a lot of innovation happening, and Pakistan is just a case study here, but we're seeing that across the board. We're seeing that in Africa as well. There's a company that we invested in, Okra, which is essentially developing something close to a plaid for Nigeria, which is very exciting. And we see
Mhm.
similar innovations happening in LATAM as well. I think what people are doing at the end of the day is they're looking at existing structures and they're saying, hey, these are very inefficient. There's
Mm.
a lot of there's a lot of leakage within these existing systems, and there's ways that we can improve that. We can reduce friction when it comes to some of those existing structures, and finding creative ways to offer that to their customers, both consumer and businesses alike. Same thing with Latin America. Susa has been very focused on Latin America. In recent history, we've made quite a few very interesting and exciting fintech investments in Mexico, in Colombia, and we're looking at the Brazilian market as well. So we see that happening a lot. So I think that's one area that I think is very exciting. I think the other piece is, when you think about the way the rails of our financial system are set up, there have been a lot of very exciting innovations that have happened historically, or in the last, call it 5 to 10 years, and these are full stack solutions that provide fintech infrastructure, but they provide their own offering. Right. So the way the companies that I'm thinking about here are the PayPal's of the world, the Stripes of the world, Marqeta on card issuing. What they're doing is very innovative within the current structures of the infrastructure, both from payments on the other side. But now we're seeing a lot of very exciting companies that are democrat hate to use this word again, but they're
Yeah.
democratizing this for their end customers, businesses in this case. So you have Phoenix that is just drastically changing the way payments facilitation happens, and the way you think about the payments layer cake sort of changing, and moving away from the traditional payfac and offering a white label solution. So this broader idea of just white labeling things, I think, is going to be it's going to be very exciting. We invest Treasury Prime, that's doing something very similar on the banking services side. Certainly an exciting place there, and I think there's going to be more innovations happening on that front as well. So that's a
Mm.
definitely a pretty exciting area for me as I think about fintech. And I think last thing that I would highlight here is that um, these existing rails and these existing pipelines often tend to have friction that comes either in the form of incorrect, improper data in terms of lack of precision in the data, or maybe there's a lag, or maybe there's like some sort of those challenges. And I think as we think about the role of data within fintech, I think that's evolving very quickly. I think companies are thinking about that in a drastically different way. So I think certain providers that are focused on reducing friction in terms of how data gets transferred and how it gets ingested and how it gets processed, I think will definitely have a very very strong future here. And that's another trend that I'm digging into, and I want to sort of learn more about, and definitely one that I think is particularly exciting as we think about the world ahead.
That's a great overview, Hammad. It's so interesting that countries that have a lot of unbanked people have actually come out with a lot of new innovation. And I guess when you have a problem, some people in the community will try and solve it. So it's interesting because it's certainly supported the fintech community in the US. I came from Ireland and London um, over 11 years ago, and I was sort of amazed that it was such a slow uptake in fintech in the US, and asked people, why is this? And I guess the incumbents just had a very strong hold on everything. And now they're having to open to a lot of fintech innovation, particularly with the crisis, but also with all these innovations that are coming from countries that, in the past they wouldn't have paid too much attention to. So
Yeah.
it's you've got to have the problem and it to be painful enough to try and solve it. Would you agree?
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, just like taking off my VC hat for a second and just thinking about it from from a consumer perspective.
Yeah,
I the first time I visited London was many many years ago, and I remember the thing that blew me away about just the payment system in England was that you had this idea of contactless cards, and like at that
yeah,
time, contactless cards were not a thing in the US. It was just not something that like
yeah.
banks were doing at that time. And you think back to it and you realize, and this is a great example of in many ways how Europe's been ahead of the US in terms of the fintech revolution and digitization in some respects. But these are the sort of the crazy dislocations that you see sometimes. You think that there's ideas that seem so obvious, and
Mm,
in terms of customer ease of access, in terms of removing some of this friction that we've already talked about, in terms of just making it a more a better experience, and improving security, a lot of those aspects. But it's a great example of just how many different dislocations we have in today's world. And we have a long way to go. I mean, sometimes people think about fintech as reaching its crescendo, but I think we're still in the very early stages. And this is
yeah.
not even talking about Web3 and crypto, which I would think of it as a completely separate animal, relative to sort of the traditional fintech that we think about. But it's a lot of exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah. It's why we're still involved, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Hamid. So interesting and conversation, and yeah, look forward to having you back on the show later down the line.
Absolutely, pleasure talking to you today as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.